We must all get ready now.
How far are you going?
About 30 years.
In a sea of remakes and superhero films blowing up and crashing at the box office, it's hard to imagine a time when Back to the Future was the highest grossing film of the year. But in 1985, that's exactly what Back to the Future was. Filmmakers Robert Zemeckis, Bob Gale, and Steven Spielberg gave us an adventure film that hit the cultural zeitgeist like a fucking wrecking ball. The first movie consistently charts on lists for greatest sci-fi film of all time, and was preserved by the Library of Congress. The sequels are well beloved, and in a day of reboots and endless sequels, you can look at the Back to the Future franchise and see a truly perfect trilogy untouched by the greed of Hollywood studios. Everybody has seen these films, and those who haven't need to step in this, or go watch it. This is a video about why Back to the Future is peak. But first, a brief history. Back to the Future is the brainchild of Robert Zemeckis and Bob Gale, who collaborated on the script. Ironically, despite the universal praise attributed to Back to the Future's screenplay, it was rejected by every film studio at the time for various reasons. Whether it was the lack of interest in time travel movies, the subject matter involving Marty's mother being too raunchy or not raunchy enough, or that Zemeckis' previous work, Used Cars and I Wanna Hold Your Hand, were financial failures. While those films were received well critically, and he had some friends in the industry, i.e. Steven Spielberg, nobody at the time was willing to take a risk on the yet-to-be-proven director. Well, fuck him, I guess. Zemeckis and Gale would have to wait to get Back to the Future off the ground. Thankfully, not for long. Fox took a chance on the young director for Romancing the Stone, a Michael Douglas vehicle also starring Kathleen Turner and Danny DeVito, and it was successful both critically and commercially. Now that Zemeckis had a successful feature under his belt, he went again searching for someone to back Back to the Future. The screenplay had initially been bought by Columbia Pictures, which was headed by Frank Price, a very accomplished Hollywood exec who greenlit these classics. But the project had been shelved once Price left for Universal Studios. Despite Spielberg's distaste for Price because of him rejecting E.T. a few years before, they were able to get Frank's help in taking Back to the Future away from Columbia. Now Universal Studios would distribute the film. The film stars Michael J. Fox as Marty McFly, an aspiring rock star who finds himself completely dissatisfied with the depressing state of his family. Marty is for some reason best friends with a mad scientist named Doc Brown, who turns his car into a time machine. After Doc is killed, we'll get to that later, Marty is sent 30 years into the past and accidentally interferes with the events that would lead to his parents getting together. What's excellent about the first installment is how expertly paced it is. Despite the large amount of information that the audience is given, it never feels bogged down. This film in terms of writing is expertly crafted. Nothing is just wasted. Even throwaway lines that seem innocuous come back to play later. Like the mall being previously titled Twin Pines Mall before Marty goes to the past. While in the 50s, Marty accidentally knocks over one of the pine trees, and once he returns to the future, the mall is retitled Lone Pine Mall. Robert Zemeckis and crew really paid a lot of attention to these kinds of details. But of course, that's not the real reason why people love these movies, it's because of the great characters. Back to the Future has excellent and well-defined characters. They were portrayed by talented actors that really put their all into the roles. Michael J. Fox as Marty is just perfect casting, and of course was the filmmaker's first decision to play the character. Ironically, Due to possible scheduling issues with the popular sitcom Family Ties, Michael was initially unable to play the part. So, the role was given to Eric Stoltz, who people may recognize as Rocky Dennis from The Mask. This movie scared the shit out of me as a kid, by the way. Eric unfortunately brought a sort of melancholic and morose disposition to the character that really didn't fit the film's tone. They had already filmed 6 weeks worth of material, but Zemeckis fired Eric after Michael got wind of the script and expressed interest in the part. And I think I can speak for everyone when I say that's probably for the best. The sense of humor and timing brought to certain lines just would not work without Michael.
Jesus Christ, Doc, you disintegrated Einstein. Doc, you don't just walk into a store and buy plutonium. I gotta go. What the hell is a gigawatt?
Michael J. Fox is funny, and Eric kinda just wasn't. Marty McFly is an icon of a character, and is a major pillar for the enjoyment of the films. You'll find a lot of teenage characters in movies, especially in the 2000s when I was growing up, being dull and just boring as hell. Couldn't be more different in Back to the Future though. Marty wouldn't be much without his loyal friend Doc Brown though. Doc is the quintessential mad scientist character, at least on the side of good. While being a bit reckless and absent-minded, his passion for the craft and loyalty to his friends makes up for it, for the most part. That doesn't mean that the recklessness doesn't cause problems though, evidenced by the Brown estate being burned to the ground before the events of the film. A lot of these seemingly hypercritical warnings given by other characters about Doc seem unnecessary until Doc's actions get him targeted by a group of radicals, who track him down and kill him. To get the plutonium needed to power his time machine, he literally scammed terrorists. Doc is crazy. It's hard to imagine such a lovable character can be played by Christopher Lloyd, who I mostly associate, ironically, with Judge Doom, he's terrifying. Marty's dad, George McFly, is played by Crispin Glover, who does a great job playing a pathetic loser type character. I think the best example of his performance is when he comes to save Lorraine from whom he thinks is Marty, but turns out to be Biff.
Hey you, get your damn hands off.
That reaction is priceless. I don't think it's the funniest role Crispin Glover has ever had, but it's pretty close. And with all his wimping and loser shit, he really does portray his eventual redemption pretty well. You really believe that he punches Biff Tannen's bitch ass in the face hard enough to knock him out. Biff Tannen is the oafish, brolic, and bad-mannered antagonist of the series, who is seen constantly tormenting the McFlys, no matter which timeline or year. Thomas Wilson does an excellent job making this character so hateable, while also being hilarious. It seems like no matter which timeline Biff is in, he still ends up being a huge asshole. The character's introduced totaling George's car and then taking a beer out of his fridge afterwards. It's hilarious. Biff is an excellent villain. And it's seemingly all fun and games until it becomes pretty clear he's going to take advantage of Lorraine here. It's a pretty harrowing scene altogether, with a movie full of them. And you'd think that's the most despicable Biff can get until the second movie when he's literally trying to shoot Marty. But he also tried to hit Marty with a car in the first film. So the main takeaway here is that he needs to be in prison. Marty's mother Lorraine is portrayed by Leah Thompson, who does an excellent job with her character as well. These scenes at the dinner table always get me. I think most people remember the joke where she wakes Marty up while he's thinking the movie's events were some kind of bad dream, before she reveals that he's in fact still in deep shit. And of course the schoolgirl has a crush on her own son thing. It's kind of funny how hypocritical Lorraine is when she gets worn down and old. She looks pretty miserable though, so maybe that has something to do with it. Of course, by the end of the first film, Marty makes it back to the future to find that everything about his family has changed for the better. And honestly, after all the crazy shit Marty had to deal with, I'm happy for him. I'm not kidding, this shit was sure to give him permanent high blood pressure. Not only does he start watching himself fade from existence, but literally 20 minutes later, he almost doesn't make it back because the car just doesn't start for no reason. This movie is an adrenaline rush the first time you see it. Every moment counts, literally the whole movie is Marty just narrowly escaping disaster after disaster, and the stakes only get higher as the films go on, but not to the point of exhaustion. The second film does retread a lot of the same ground and kind of doesn't have a clue what to do with Jennifer, Marty's girlfriend, halfway through, but it's hilarious. It's definitely the funniest out of the three films. Part 3 wraps things up in a satisfying way. Despite a lot of the adversity the future is likely to bring the characters, they're gonna be alright. I feel like we're missing adventure movies that just want to take you on a wild ride that surprises and satisfies you at the same time. But that's what Back to the Future movies did. Whether kicking the shit out of their main character or spoofing Sergio Leone movies, it rewards you for watching. It makes you feel good after. And that's why Back to the Future is peak. Hey, thanks for watching the video. If you liked it, go on ahead and subscribe, and be sure to follow my Instagram and Twitter linked in the description below. I post comics and general mayhem there. And let me know if you've seen Back to the Future and its sequels before. Which one's your favorite? Personally, I grew up liking Back to the Future Part 2 the most. It constantly had me howling. Definitely as I've grown older, the first one's definitely the better. That's pretty much all I've got. So see you later.